Minister Nick Clegg, thank you very much for joining us on Islam Channel. Now, many Muslim organisations across Britain and their leadership have been hugely critical of the recent report and recommendations from the Extremism Task Force, saying that it focuses rather predominantly on Muslim institutions, universities, madrasas and schools and so on, and even prisons. There's only one line reference to extremism, far-right extremists. Do you think that this is an acceptable strategy to relaunch Prevent? Are you not concerned it might alienate communities?
Well, it certainly shouldn't alienate communities. That's not the purpose of it, and you are quite right to emphasise that violent extremism comes in many shapes and sizes and should be there to comfort communities that otherwise might be menaced by violence rather than in any way alienate them. I think it's worth emphasising that actually after extensive discussion within the coalition government, the final report of the Extremism Task Force was much more cautious than it might have been. As you know, there were some voices who were saying that we should immediately be reaching for the statute book to legislate for so-called extremism ASBOs. I and others said, no, let's look at this much more carefully. So in the document, all it says is we'll look at the case for it. So there's no headlong rush towards measures which might well be misplaced and misjudged in practice.
Overly focused on the Muslim community, and wouldn't you agree that there's the Select Committee in Parliament just a couple of years ago suggested that a fundamental flaw in it was that it needed to be more broadly focused?
It did, but do remember that this report was written in the wake of an act of unspeakable violence in the streets of London, where two individuals cited in a totally perverse, distorted, and to Muslims around the world deeply offensive manner their faith, the faith of Islam. And so I think it was natural that should be said.
You're not suggesting that these actions, as was openly stated by most Muslim leaders, were the actions of a Muslim community?
No, of course not. No, far from it. I think they were an abhorrent sort of antithesis of everything that Islam stands for. But it is incredibly important, it seems to me, for the Muslim communities in this country and elsewhere that we all work together, Muslim communities, non-Muslim figures, to say loud and clear that this was a grotesque distortion of the peace-loving values of Islam as a religion, and making it quite clear that we can work together across community lines and across faith lines to defend, if you like, the good name of Islam from the perverted, violent ideology of those who appropriate Islam in such a disfiguring manner seems to me to be very important.
Finally, just if I'd like you just to respond to what has become an increasingly big issue in the Muslim community, and that is the actions and words of a prospective MP, Majid Nawaz. Now, he felt it appropriate to respond to a situation by texting some cartoons of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Do you accept there's a need for more considerate and less provocative language amongst all political figures? And do you think that what he did represents the ethos of the Liberal Democrat Party?
Well, clearly Majid was not speaking on behalf of the Liberal Democrats or saying anything which in any way reflects Liberal Democrat policy. He was speaking as an individual, as an individual Muslim as well. But look, my view is that whilst, of course, I, as a liberal, believe in defending the freedom for people in our free society to say things, even though those things are offensive to others, I equally believe that people should always treat others with respect and speak with moderation and sensitivity about things that touch on issues of faith, because these are things that are deeply held by people. I know from having spoken to many colleagues and friends in the Muslim communities up and down the country that what Majid said was very offensive to them. He has expressed public regret for the tone and temper of some of his public pronouncements. And what we need to do is balance two liberal values. One, the freedom of expression, which is very important in a free society. But secondly, moderation and mutual respect in the way in which we talk about faith, given that that is such a heartfelt issue for so very many people in the country.
Deputy Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us.